Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Creatives of Windsor Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Sheridan, and today I'm sitting down with local musician, Eamon Mcgrath. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know it's been a long time coming, but
yeah, the backstory is that I think this was rescheduled like 2 or 3 times, and it's all my fault.
No, it's all good.
Responsibility. I've had a really crazy couple years. It's been a lot of touring and just working on stuff around the city.
Yeah. Where are you from originally?
So I'm originally from Edmonton by way of Toronto. So I grew up in Edmonton and moved to Toronto when I was, I want to say 19 or 20. I can't remember. They're very hazy times. And whatever it was, 2010. And then moved here 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it'd be fairly recent.
Yeah, and actually, like, technically, I feel like I'm still kind of, I still feel pretty fresh off the boat, because when I first moved here, I moved here in like winter of 2022. I want to say it was like January, February. I moved in with my partner Sheila, who you've had on the show, and I put out a record. We put out a record and like right away in March of that year, and so I started touring it, and I was gone for like 6 months. So it felt like my first sort of year of living here. My first year as a Windsorite was I kind of phoned it in. So now I'm actually a Windsorite. Now I feel like I'm actually, well, some people might not think that, but now I'm at the point where I really do truly call Windsor my home, and I'm super proud to be here and happy to be here, and I'm loving it.
That's awesome.
I was actually, when I was driving here, I was thinking back to a year ago, and how I've kind of taken not a hiatus, but I've taken some time off touring. I used to tour a lot, and in the last since that record's release, and since I stopped that really marathon 6 months of tour dates, when we put out that album, A Dizzying Lust, which was actually recorded and manufactured and mixed, and the artwork was made here, and everything was totally a Windsor record. I remember working on campus at the U last year and thinking how amazing a city Windsor is in the fall. And I was driving here up Dominion, crossing Norfolk, and I was like, holy fuck, man, this is such a great city. In the fall especially, it really hits home how amazing it is. It just lights up.
Yeah, so. That's why I love like this neighborhood too, because like all the huge crazy trees everywhere. And
it's a lot like Edmonton. Edmonton, growing up, where the part of Edmonton I grew up was like that. Like the trees kind of form these sort of like archways around all the streets.
Yeah.
And they are really similar cities. Like moving here was pretty eye-opening, because I feel fortunate to have grown up in Edmonton, and then I also feel fortunate to have kind of cut my teeth in Toronto and watched that city change, not for the better, I'd say, but sort of devolve from the city that I fell in love with, and then become what it is now, which is just like a bleak corporate shithole that I've heard I would describe it as, and people I know describe it as well. And then coming here now, seeing Windsor, the kind of city that it is, it has so much in common with the Edmonton that I left. So at this point in my life, it's really nice to kind of feel like I've almost come home to something, which is pretty sweet. They're just like working class cities with an intensely creative, intellectual population that has its roots in more like blue collar kind of outlooks on life. Like Edmonton was an oil city, obviously.
Yeah.
But it also had a university, and so you did get this sort of amalgamation, or like in the Venn diagram of like working and the working classes and the sort of thinking classes. Edmonton was right in the middle.
Yeah,
Windsor's exactly like that.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, that's cool. And like, do you like having a longer summer rather than a longer winter?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, well, Edmonton winters aren't as bad as they were when I was younger, not for the better.
And same here too.
Yeah. I mean, I remember
we don't even get them anymore.
I remember this past winter, I mean, I remember it getting above 20 degrees in February. Like, as an Edmontonian, that's like fucking unimaginable.
It's like the last few winters have just been like, it's just getting like less and less cold.
Yeah.
And I bet you, like I was saying to my wife, I was like, I bet you in like 20 years, we wouldn't even have winter anymore. Yeah.
It's crazy, man. We're at a really intense intersection in especially in the West. Like, I think that right now we are at the crossroads of something that's just I don't know. It's a really revolutionary time. You can feel it in the air. Everybody's struggling. Musicians are going through some really crazy shit. And I mean, like, the last 5 years has shown that any really drastic social change or economic change that happens, I mean, the music has become more and more the front line of it. And yeah, I mean, I think you can sort of look to whatever is happening in the music industry and whatever is happening to independent musicians as a way of sort of being able to predict what's going to happen 2 years or, you know, from now. Yeah. And it's, which is kind of scary, you know?
You like to get deep in your songs, right? What is your songwriting process like? Actually, like, let me ask this kind of a different way. So I've been listening to you since I met you about a year ago. I've mostly listened to your album Guts.
Okay. That's a good one to start with. Yeah.
That's which came out in 2019, right?
Yeah.
So pre-COVID, you wrote that stuff.
Yeah. And like pretty close to the outbreak of it.
You like to sing about like your life, the places you are, because you have a song, Cold Alberta Nights, right? Yeah. And then you have the Ontario, what is it? Ontario Kids, what was that song called?
There's a song, a recent one called Anthem for an Ontario Child.
Yep.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, I totally sing about sort of one of the things I sing about is definitely like the concept of home and being away from it, because I spent so much of my life in a van, you know, kind of on either the way to or from, you know, what I would call home.
Yeah.
The being away and being far away and being sort of away from home and sort of trying to even understand what you might define it as has played a huge part of my adult life. My mom's a writer. She writes about that all the time. You know, there's just it's a strange human quality, I think, to sort of be really conscious of the fact that there is such a thing, but we can't really define it or know what it is, because there's lots of houses that are just houses to us. Like, you know, like fuck, man. I mean, musicians, most of them are renters, you know. A lot of people lead really transient lives now, you know. A city like Toronto, I was kind of under the guise that it was my home for a really long time, but in hindsight, it was this really sort of transitional place for me and a ton of people. I mean, like it's like it really has been this just like revolving door city for millions of people. I called it home for 12 years, almost 15 years, but I probably feel more at home here than I did when I lived there.
Did you live downtown there? Or?
Yeah, and I mean, I was gone, right? Like I was just like, it was the best place I could have lived as a musician in my 20s, you know. Edmonton was my home. Edmonton's my home because I was born there. It's my hometown, but it's nothing like it was. I mean, I go back there and I don't feel at home. You know, I feel home. I feel like I'm going home to the house I grew up in when I go back to my parents' place, but my brother doesn't live there anymore, you know. You know, there's different color paint on the walls. They renovated the fucking kitchen, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, they're probably going to sell the place in a couple of years. And then, you know, maybe they'll move somewhere else and I'll be going to my folks' house. Is that my home now? Like, there's all these philosophical things that you can kind of unravel when you write about it. You know, it's a really powerful metaphor. It's a great sort of way to prompt yourself into exploring other things. You know, as a lyricist, there's a lot of easy imagery you can pull on. I mean, like the metaphor of like building a house is such a really good way of describing how you make a record. Like, you know, you start with the foundation, you pour concrete, that's your drums and your bass tracks. And then you add you frame the walls, those are your guitars. And then you put the roof on it. That's like the fucking vocals. and then you go get it mastered. That's the paint and the furniture or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of those sort of topical, having those kind of like topical kind of anchor points end up being pretty convenient as a writer, for sure.
When you're making a record, are you constantly always just writing stuff, or do you just like, okay, now we're gonna make a record, you go to the studio and then you just kind of start from there?
Yeah, it totally depends. I mean, I've done both. Like that album you're talking about, Guts, was actually funny enough. So I had, in like 2015 to about 2017, I kind of stopped. That was the last time I sort of took a big break from touring. And I was in like a real fucking rut. Like I had no idea what to do. I was kind of between labels. I'd kind of given up on music. I was having like a total existential meltdown, whatever, doesn't matter. But in hindsight, I was like, I thought I was this like road hardened fucking musician, and I'd only really been touring, straight since I was, 17. So now I'm like, I've been touring like miles beyond what I thought was a lot back then. But to my credit, as like a 20 something, I had toured way more than a lot of people my age at that point. And so I was in kind of this rut. I was playing with this other band from Toronto for a couple of years, and did some records with them. And then I met Dawn Laux from Saved by Vinyl, and she like really put the defibrillator on me. Like she kind of resurrected my inspiration. Like, and she brought the label back to life a bit, because she also had been sort of hibernating a little bit, and so we kind of inspired each other to get like really back involved in putting out records. I got some funding to make this record called Tantrumar, so I went out to the East Coast and did it, and I had these songs that I'd been working on for years, like old versions and stuff that I'd been trying to perfect, and I just couldn't get it right. Like the opener on that album, Chlorine, was a song that I'd had since like 2012 or 2013, just like constantly on the back burner, like couldn't ever figure out how the fuck to get it right. And then on that record, I finally did. That was like 4 or 5 years after that, and and then some of that record was made, like it was just, I wrote it while it was being recorded. Like it was like something improvised that I edited and fucking whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then that record came out. And then 6 months after that, we got funding to go and do Guts. And it was like, holy fuck. So then it was like, we had to just like go total fucking like, battle stations mode. And I had to like figure out what record, I had to like make a record and figure out what to do. So then it was like, yeah, the whole process was like, just like a marathon, like, and I had to essentially just go and write like 5 songs a day. So circumstance and necessity, like the saying goes, really corners you into making these really specific artistic decisions that will totally challenge and, create a sense of upheaval and make you completely second guess what you might describe as like a familiar process. Like I don't have one. And I think that anybody that says they do is either lying or is going to get really stagnant super fast. Because whenever, a band or an artist settles into some sort of like, formulaic way of doing something, eventually the ideas get pretty stale and they have to, inject some kind of new life in what they're doing. Yeah. It's just like, as far as I can tell, or bands break up. I mean, that's the way I see it. So yeah, I don't know. There's always like a new pedal that you can buy, or a new tuning you discover, or a new band you hear, or something new that comes along every 5 years that completely upends and uproots your way of doing something.
It is when you're making a song, is guitar like the most important thing, and then the lyrics are just whatever after, or do you do the lyrics and then kind of make the guitar to it?
Well, that's a really good question, because like applicably, it's like I felt going into Guts like I had sort of burnt myself out on the guitar for like, I was like, there's nothing more I can do with this instrument, which is not true. But my point is that that's where, emotionally I was at the time. It was just like, there's nothing more I can do. I don't have another pedal that I can't use another amp. I've been playing 300 shows a year. Like, I don't want to play a Stratocaster, blah, 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 blah. So I just was like, for Guts, one of the things that I think I was able to really do, which streamline that kind of, creative necessity, that creative spirit or whatever, was I just was like, I went full tilt on the piano. And that's why that record is really keyboard heavy, because I just was like, I didn't want to play guitar, even though Greg Milson, the drummer, and I recorded most of the bed tracks live off the floor with guitar. Most of the guitar in that record ended up being replaced by piano, and then guitar was like overdubbed later. But we went into one of the reasons why I went into the studio, Private Ear, that I did was because they had this fucking amazing grand piano that I didn't get a chance to really play as much as I wanted to on the last record that I'd made there, which was with Julie Doiron, which was like a really like guitar based band. Like that was just like a guitar band. So the piano wasn't tuned when we got there, and JP and I were like, fuck, what are we going to do? Like, we got to use this piano. This is like why you flew out here. And him and I figured out how to tune a piano with a drum key and a C wrench. Never tuned a piano before, ever. It was just like, we just like read about how to do it. We fucking, he knew way more than I did. And we just sort of like, the two of us just kind of like figured it out, and we tuned this piano and played it a bunch, made it on the record.
That's pretty sweet. When you're playing live, do you bring a keyboard with you for songs like that, or do you just play them on guitar?
And that's just because like of some pretty just like logistical, necessary aspects. Like it's just, I can't really afford to bring a band much anymore in general, but I've never really been able to afford to bring more than a 4-piece band on the road. So a couple of years ago, typically it was like myself, a second guitar player, bass player, drummer. So
you'll never like hop on keyboards
no,
yourself
I never
live.
did. It was like I everything would be rearranged to be like with 2 guitars, which was again another reason why I got so exhausted from playing the instrument.
Yeah.
Because it was like anytime I'd ever do something in the studio that was maybe a little more adventurous, or eventually by the time we got on tour to promote the record, it was just like it always had to go through the filter of like just your basic 4-piece rock band, which is cool and it's fun to fucking rock out, but eventually, you hit this kind of creative wall with it. It's just like it ends up kind of always sounding like a 4-piece rock band. So
yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When did you go to Japan this year?
We did, yeah.
How long were you there for?
This time it was 3 weeks.
Did you anyone with a band?
No. I've been to Japan once with the band the first time I went, and then the last 2 times I've just gone and played acoustic shows.
That's sweet. How many shows did you do in the 3 weeks?
I want to say it was about 13 or 15.
Damn.
I can't remember. But
so kind of like 2 days on, 1 day off kind of thing?
Yeah, it'd be like we would do like a week and then a couple days and then 2, and then we had like another week.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've done really fucking long slogs in Japan before, like where you're going for 3.5 weeks and playing every day. And that's definitely kind of an unorthodox way to do it. Most people, most artists, most like higher profile artists go to Japan and play like 4 shows in 2 or 3 cities and come back.
Yeah. What's your day like when you're doing a show like that? Like, so
in Japan?
Yeah. Like,
you just like get up at the hotel, you go to the train station, you take the train, you get to the venue, you play the show, and you,
do you stay out late? Do you go back after?
Well, yeah, I mean, I quit drinking 3 years ago. So for me, it's like my tours are pretty fucking boring now. But no, back when I was drinking, yeah, we went out for sure. And like, Japan is crazy if you want to get rips. Like it's among, if not the craziest drinking culture on earth. It's like one of them.
Oh yeah.
Probably more so than Germany even or something. I mean, like it's just a different kind of social relationship with alcohol. Like they just go nuts, Germans, I mean, don't get me wrong, people party worldwide, but like in Japan, it's like there really is this feeling of like letting loose, and they just like they just drink a lot. I mean, they really do. And so in those days, I mean, this is like years ago now, but my drummer and I, Connor, were like were the two that were going out a lot together, and we would do like one day on the sauce, one day off, one day on, one day off, because yeah, like you really fucking get exhausted touring Japan, because there's just no other way to get around other than take the train everywhere. It's just like 99% of the traveling. So like trying to navigate, Osaka Station at 8 a.m. when you've been up till 5 drinking in some izakaya, and you don't understand the language. No one can tell you, like, no one can help you, tell you where you're going to go. No one's going to give you any help. There's all these intricate bureaucratic things in the train station that you're trying to figure out. And you're surrounded by, 250,000 people at any time. Like, it's just like, it's so dense. Like, you get really sick of being hungover in those situations pretty quick.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah. So Japan is kind of like the last, like the final boss, so to speak, when it comes to touring, because it's like mentally, it takes a lot out of you, because you got to be like on your shit all the time.
You were supposed to go to Europe this month, but you're not going till the fall now. The spring.
We had to reschedule just because we just couldn't get the capital together to front expenses. I mean, the music industry is just so different now. The Canadian economy is in the shitter, and it's harder and harder and harder for Canadian bands to find the resources to do international touring right now. It's a sad truth, but it's just the way it is. It's like, hopefully it's not forever, but the Canadian music industry has always sort of relied on these linchpins, these like revenue linchpins, where the entire kind of fabric of what artists are able to do in terms of like where they get their money to expense the cost of touring and creating. We are terrible at figuring out ways to vertically integrate as businesses, or rely on more traditional or sustainable ways of getting money together to do this stuff. It's like, if it's arts funding or satellite radio royalties or whatever, it's like Canadian independent musicians are always put in this really precarious place of having sort of only one reliable revenue stream. So when that goes away, we're fucking doomed. And COVID proved that, when it's like all of our live revenue was taken. When Sirius XM didn't renew the CBC Radio 3 contract a couple years ago, that was taken from us. That was like a death knell for everybody. It's harder and harder and harder to get grants funding now, because there's more and more applicants. And when the Conservatives win this election, which is for me a nightmare, there's going to be even less public money thrown at
which
arts.
election? But
there will be a Canadian election soon, and Trudeau's not going to win. And artists need to be prepared for the reality that they're going to face. It's not going to be fun.
Do you think you guys are more affected by the federal government or the provincial government in terms of stuff like that?
Yeah, I think the federal government will be really impacting, because of, the Canada Council will get affected. Factor will have some funding pulled. And also I think that there's just this trickle down where, the sort of the cultural kind of, collective consciousness at the time is sort of is kind of indicated by whatever party is federally calling the shots.
Where, for your tour in Japan, for example, where did the funding come for that? What did you?
We fund everything. I mean, Cassettes Records, like the label that my partner and I, Sheila Roberts, run together. We do it all, because there's just no way for me to recoup any expenses that a label spends on my art anymore. Yeah. So I have no choice but to do it out of pocket and try and make the money back and make profit on it, which is really how it's done. I mean, that's really how you're supposed to do it, is you invest in a business and you convert it to profitability. You just like, you make a record and you tour until the record's paid back, and you sell as many copies as you have to pay it back, and you sell as many t-shirts as you have to pay it back. And that's just how it works. And Canadians have either had the luxury of never having to realize how much work's involved in that because they've had arts funding for so long, or we are from parts of this country where that's just not regionally possible. And now the costs of doing business are so high that no bands can break out of that sort of regional circuit without playing too much, like oversaturating themselves in wherever little market they're in, except for a select few,
Yeah.
It's a really tough time for Canadian art. And like I can't see a way out anytime soon personally, but so for me, I mean, I'm getting older. I'm going to be in my 40s in a couple of years. I've toured like a fucking racehorse for, over 15 years now. I've been playing music live in front of people and playing shows since I was 9. I've been doing it a really long time. And physically and emotionally and mentally at this point in my life, I'm just not prepared to go and play 250 shows in Canada to pay a record back. And so I'm kind of handcuffed to having to make really difficult decisions when I just straight up don't have the money to front costs of touring. And that's one of them. So I'm not the only artist that has to do that. I mean, bands cancel now. It's something that just happens. And when I was younger, it was just never an option. Like, you just couldn't cancel. When you booked a show, it was this sacred bond. But times were just really different then. They were so different. The creative infrastructure was there. You could afford to work. And now it's just, the world's changed.
Interesting. Yeah, that's it's interesting to hear from the point of view of somebody who's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah,
hear what you're going through and everything.
Not to get grim, it's just like people definitely have to realize what's going to happen because, gas isn't getting cheaper. Venues are closing. Every time a venue closes in a city like in a town like Huntsville, for example. Which is like, might not sound like anything to someone that's not a working musician, but to like, when you're a working musician and when you're trying to play music for a living in a province like Ontario, you rely on every single possible place that you can play a show in. And a lot of the times, more often than not, a lot of the towns in Ontario have one of those places. So if one of those cities loses a venue for you to work in, that's another day of work in your year that you don't have anymore, or another 2 or 3, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
The more that happens, as you just see work days on your calendar dropping like flies. And in any other line of work, there'd be alarm bells ringing. Unions would rally together, and the LCBO just went on strike here because they were fucking whining about beer being able to be sold in convenience stores. And flash forward a couple months and nothing's changed. But musicians don't have the luxury of that. The AFA, the AFM doesn't, it's not like the AFM stands up for us, even if we pay our dues. We're completely alone. We don't qualify for unemployment insurance. It's just one of those things. It's a really tough time.
Yeah.
So.
No, I get it. Let's, maybe I think we're going to circle back to this stuff in a few, but I wanted to ask you kind of like where you come from and just your musical journey in general. What are some of your favorite bands like that you've liked forever and some that you just like now? And
well, my point zero probably is The Clash. And then if I had to really be honest with myself, probably before that was probably Nirvana. Like the Nirvana kind of, it was able to Nirvana made me able to sort of like understand really what The Clash was. And then from there, from The Clash, I just I went off in every direction. I spent most of my younger, formative years or whatever, trying to figure out what records Joe Strummer loved. And then from that point, it was just like really trying to dig through musical history to like understand what they would have been listening to. So, and then on the other side of the coin, the Clash were kind of these like superheroes and still are to me. And then the other band was the Replacements, who were American and from Minneapolis, which is a similar city to Edmonton too. And they were like totally not superheroes. Like the Replacements are the polar opposite of superheroes. Like they were like, you know, really blue collar kind of just like underdogs. And both of those bands, when you look at them together, it's like it's equally amazing that music could come out of those human bodies. And that's the way I always kind of I always thought about it. Like the Clash are amazing because they're just amazing. And the Replacements are just amazing because they're not amazing. Like they're just these skinny, like drunk kids. And they could write that music that just changed my life. Like that amazed me. And then, yeah, the Clash were just amazing in the way that like fucking Superman's amazing, you know?
Yeah. So,
yeah, those two bands, Clash and the Replacements, probably more than anything.
Okay.
Why I do what I do.
Got you. So like grungy stuff, pop or punk, grunge, kind of just stuff like that.
Yeah, and like from a really young age, kind of having someone explain to you through music that the concept of punk was something that was just way more limitless than the average person could sort of explain to you, you know, like, and Nirvana did that too. I mean, it was so far beyond a sound, you know, like, so like, yeah, I mean, admittedly, you know, like I heard the Clash and then I was way more into exploring, you know, what made great reggae awesome, like, you know, Big Youth or like Prince Far Eye or super heavy dub like that. And then like Joe Strummer, he would wear a cowboy hat, and that always blew my mind. Like, why did he wear a cowboy hat? And then I was like, oh, because he was fucking into Woody Guthrie and Book of White and like all these like, you know, Son House, all these hardcore blues singers that, you know, were fucking way more punk than anything that I was told was punk when I was younger, you know?
Yeah.
And then I'm really glad that I got to hear that stuff, because by the time I got to like NoFX or something, I was just like, this is not punk at all. Like for me, it was like totally underwhelming, and I never got into it. Like I never liked that stuff. I was into heavier shit. I liked Discharge and Doom. And by the time I heard those like crust bands, I mean, even that wasn't extreme enough. And then by the time I was 15 or 16, I was really into Wolf Eyes and Throbbing Gristle and fucking White House and all these crazy bands like that. And then, you know, but I mean, I started playing guitar when I was 9. So I also wanted to, you know, be able to connect to that instrument, and started listening to super, what I would call really heavy, you know, acoustic guitar music like Bert Jansch and Neil Young and Mark Kozlek and stuff that just really like fucking hits you.
Yeah.
That was always what I was after. It was just something that cuts you deep.
What would you, this might be a hard question to answer, what would you classify your most recent records as genre wise, if you had to put it into?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm like I'm a folk singer. I mean, at my heart, I think like that's what Joe Strummer was. I think the Wu-Tang Clan were folk singers. You know, I think that like I try to channel the working class experiences of my community into really beautiful music.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately that's my job. And that's what the Clash did. That's what, you know, Big Youth did. That's what Sonic Youth did. That's what Nirvana did. That's what all those bands did. The Replacements, like anything I just mentioned, you know, tries to translate the language of the working classes into something that the entire world can understand as beautiful. And that to me is like the essence of punk rock. You know, it's like the art form that recontextualizes the struggle of working people.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm a folk singer. I play really quiet, punk rock songs.
Yeah.
I have like
it's like punk, but it's folk, or it's folk, but it's punk.
Yeah, and I've always kind of thought about it like if I was playing music that was like, pretty music like Mark Kozlik, but with like the energy of Joe Strummer. That's kind of the way I describe it to people.
Okay. When you were in Japan, were you playing like your most recent songs, or do you just play like your whole discography?
Yeah. So like since Dizzying Lust came out, the set has moved to be mostly focused on songs from that record. And that was, again, like we were talking about the guitar, it's like, and the electric guitar, and how like throughout my career, no matter what record I did, it was kind of like, it always sort of ended up being like this, like it ended up being depicted with like two loud guitars and a rhythm section. And this record, it was like from the start, like from the creation of it, the whole point of the record was to make an album that could really effectively be recreated live exactly like it was made.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to, and I had to, I guess I had to tour solo because it's all I've really been able to afford to do since, COVID. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to make a folk record and I'm going to tour as a folk singer. And so that's how that ended up being the way that it was.
When's the next time you're playing here in Windsor?
December 7th, for the Fog send off, the Frogger Fest.
Oh, the big shebang.
Yeah.
The 7th. Yeah, man. I want to go to that, but it's my wife's grandmother's 100th birthday.
Whew.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think we can miss that.
Yeah, that doesn't come around often.
That doesn't come around for most people, I'd say.
100 years that's a long time.
Yeah, that's a very long time. So, I have to go to that night, but I'm assuming it's going to be not a late one, seeing how she's 100 years old. So
there you go.
We'll probably swing by after, try to like figure out, how to, come see a few bands or something.
Well, I was just like really happy to be included in that bill because, I mean, for me, it's just, it's the end of an era to see that place leave downtown. And I mean, a lot of my life wouldn't be what it was if it hadn't been for Fog. Like Sheila and I met at Fog Lounge, actually. So
before you guys were already dating when you moved here? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
So my drummer Danny Miles introduced us, and we met in that room. I mean, there's so much of my life has been affected by Fog Lounge.
When was the first time you played there?
Fog Lounge?
Yeah.
2007.
Damn.
I want to say.
By yourself or with a band?
I was playing in a band called I wouldn't say I was in the city streets, but I was playing guitar for some songs. I was kind of playing second guitar for a band called City Streets, and I was opening for them. And we were kind of this outlaw gang.
That you guys, were you still in Edmonton at the time? You guys were all from Edmonton?
Yeah, and I was underage, and Fog. I would have played Fog with them for the first time, I think.
Damn.
I want to say. And if not, then I could be thinking of something else, but maybe I think it was them.
Yeah.
I'd have to check, but
yeah, it's sad that it's leaving, but I guess we'll see what comes next.
Yeah, I mean everything ends, and good and bad, and like it's incredible that it lasted as long as it did.
That's true.
It was able to really do the impossible.
I think Fog itself is like 20 years, like right on the dot or something, maybe 21. Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing. I'm like, not to get all doom and gloom again, but that's just going to become more common.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's, musicians need to really prepare, and so do arts communities. Like, you cannot rely on anyone else other than yourself. And, that kind of frontier, the frontier spirit of being an artist, like the outlaw spirit of being an artist, has to prevail. Otherwise, it's just not going to exist at all. And Canadians have been really pampered for a long time by having, never had to really like put their necks on the line. Like, we've been fortunate to have, government assistance with international touring, and like, it's just, that's going to go away. It will not last. And people need to be ready. And people on the more administrative side of art and music need to be prepared to like, do shows, like bring bands to your town, like figure out a place where you can set up a PA and a microphone and have like, if people don't actually empower their communities and the spaces within them and take the initiative to actually do things, they will not get done anymore because it's becoming harder and harder to do them. So like, I mean, we live in a great city for it. There's so much potential here. It's like, I am so happy living here because I'm able to do all the things that I couldn't afford to do in Toronto. Like I can put on shows and I can have them be profitable. I can do house shows. Like we can have songwriters play in our yard and they can make some cash. And, like the city does throw money at the arts. Like it's really good to live in a city where that happens. But like that, how hard it ended up being to live in Toronto and like be an artist and be a professional artist, and how many people are leaving there because it gets increasingly hard. The experience of Fog and what they're going through is an alarm bell for everybody here. It's really truly is. And people need to pay attention to what's happening because it's not just Fog that's at risk of suffering that kind of a fate. It's, like it's capitalism is coming for all of us. It's going to happen and people need to be ready.
Yeah, no, it happens like from the beginning stages to like the big stages. Exactly. It just gets like faster and faster and faster. Like if you're like when you like, even for example, like just like a normal person, like if you have a house and you pay it down a bit, do you know how easy it is to buy another house? It's incredibly easy to buy another house because they use your first one as collateral. And then you know how easy it is to get a third one? It's even easier. And then it just becomes like, then it's just like a snowball. So think about these people that have like, millions of dollars and all these properties and businesses and shit, probably like the people who bought Fog. Like they buy these things like nothing and they don't even pay for them anymore.
Yeah. And as Toronto becomes more expensive and the shockwave kind of, like the mushroom cloud or whatever you want to call it, as it kind of like expands along the 401, like there really is not going to be any town in Ontario that's safe from that kind of an attitude and that kind of a change.
Yeah.
Like condos are going up everywhere.
Yeah. And
it's fucking scary because we are going to run out of places to create art and it's going to happen really quick.
Yeah. Because when you have these, like Windsor, what happened, like if you got a house in 2017 for $200,000, now you have like $500,000 of equity, even if you never paid $1 off. And like you can go to like small towns and buy shit without even spending money on it. So like if you have that, the bank's like, oh yeah, we'll give you $300,000. You don't even have to put anything down. And then you buy a house.
They want to.
And then that town goes, and then you buy more and it's just fucking crazy. And it just happens so fast. And then shit like Fog goes away to like nothing.
I know.
It's just going to sit there empty. Nothing's going to happen. It sucks.
So, it's, you're right. Mm-hmm. And it's just, the minute that there's one less place like Fog, which is a really affordable place to have a show, where even if you were on tour and, you were only playing to 25, 30 people, it was still a good day of work. And, it was like the people that ran it obviously never got rich, but they were able to maintain and sustain what they were doing. And in doing so, the bands that played there were able to maintain and sustain what they were doing. And once pieces of that, that puzzle start kind of getting removed, the whole system collapses.
Yeah.
Anyway, That's what we're on the, we're seeing it happen in real time, and people need to be aware.
Yeah. It's going to come down to like these capitalists or these politicians who are like into art and stuff like that. It's going to take them to like help out, you know?
I think, yeah. And I think that it's going to come down to people just being willing to work for the good of their community. Mm-hmm. That's really what it is. Like, people need to be able to be willing to sacrifice their home for an artist to perform or to, you know, to put them up, or like we need that more than ever now. We need that kind of independent minded, that frontier spirit of music to be active again. I mean, you know, like we need people that are going to regularly host performances. We need to give musicians not just a reason to keep working, but the means by which to do so. We, you know, like, if a venue in your town closes, like you need to be the person to have a plan B. Like, you know, you need to be like, oh, well, I've got a garage and there's nothing in it. You need to be the person that goes to Long and McQuaid and rents a PA. You need to be the person that puts posters up. You need to be the person that, you know, make sure that the band is fed, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it was outsourced, I think, for so long, and people have forgotten that it really is like there are these practical steps to making sure that art gets created, and it doesn't require a ton of expenses, and it doesn't require a huge production budget, and it doesn't require a lot of, you know, technical equipment. It just requires like a room like this. Mm-hmm. And people just need to be reminded of that, I think, more than ever. For
sure. What are you guys having any shows at the DH coming up, like through Cassette Records?
We might be. We're trying to kind of we've been sort of putting the brakes on it a little bit to get a couple other things sorted. I mean, we that record Dizzying Lust, we pressed it on vinyl, so that was a big move for the label. That's the second vinyl release that we did, but the first one with the first like bigger pressing, like wider pressing. So we've done like some super boutiquey like lathe cut stuff before, and that's just for like the fucking total nerds, like myself included.
Yeah.
But like the record we just pressed is like it's a record, like a couple hundred copies of the album. And
do you guys have it out locally? Like, is that Dr. Disc and stuff?
And I mean, that's one of the reasons we were going to Europe, but we had to unfortunately reschedule, was to sell this thing. But yeah, so to answer your question, yes, because we're sitting on these records now, we're going to have to do some more shows. And the DH is an amazing venue, and but we sort of put the brakes on some of the stuff that we were doing locally to make sure that this record could get made, and now it's made. So now we can start looking around and trying to give back a bit to the community again.
Yeah, for sure.
So yes, there will be more shows. We're not sure when, but I think like we also want to kind of do some stuff at some other venues in the city. Again, what we were just talking about, to prove that music can occur in all these other spaces that you'd never think that it would be able to, you know, like,
yeah,
there's tons of spaces in Windsor, and it's a really positive resource in a community, is to have like accessible space, you know? So, we want to do that too, you know?
Yeah.
And have like just quieter shows and, you know, maybe like more like off the beaten path places. So that's some stuff that we're trying to figure out too, but.
Yeah, there were some fun shows there. Like, especially last fall, you guys had a couple great ones, and
yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but for like heavier rock stuff, if we're ever putting a show like that on, the DH
as a spot,
the headquarters. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's very cool. Okay, so besides, are you still planning to go to Europe in the spring? Was that kind of what you're thinking?
Most of the tour is rescheduled already.
Okay, sweet.
So that's been a really positive sign, and.
Are you going by yourself? Like, does Sheila go with you?
Sheila and I go, yeah.
Okay.
And we run the label on the road.
Nice.
Yeah, and essentially we just, you know, it's just the two of us. So we go on tour, and we kind of work together. Like, we both tour manage, and we're just both. I mean, we are the label, so we're both there, and it's the best.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Where are you going when you're there?
When you're trying to like do like a typical sort of like major market crack at Europe, you stick as much as you can to Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and then you go to France when and how you can afford it.
Okay.
And then you kind of like over the course of the next couple of years, you splinter off into other territories. But for me, like the hearth of the fire is always Germany and Austria.
Okay.
Just that circle.
Yeah.
In the middle of Europe like that.
Have you ever done anything in like South America, Central America? Yeah.
Yeah. Performed there and was production managing a couple shows in Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil.
Oh, damn.
The last winter, and then I've toured Mexico a couple times.
Yeah.
As like an acoustic tours.
I've never been to Mexico, and I'm going 3 times in like the next 4 months.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I'm gonna get to see
the
it.
Best. I love playing in Mexico. It's a whole different kind of experience. Like audiences there are incredible. Mexican bands are operating on a level of intensity that northern North Americans just will never understand.
Yeah.
When you see a hardcore band or a power violence band or a grindcore band in Mexico, it's turned up to such a degree that it's almost another genre, It's just so intense, and it's injected with so much just high octane energy and just, that it's almost its own thing.
Yeah, I could imagine. My buddies in the local band Uncle Ray.
Okay.
They probably haven't played here since before you moved here.
Okay.
It's just like a 3-piece, like very like hardcore heavy metal type
Sweet.
stuff.
Yeah.
Female lead singer.
Okay.
But the singer and the drummer, they're together. I think they're married, whatever. They moved to Toronto. So just the bass player lives here now, but they went to, point of the story was, they went to Colombia, like pre-COVID and
Same
played.
kind of thing, yeah.
That's fucking crazy. Like to go down there and play that kind of music must have been a blast. You know?
And I mean, and tons of my friends have done that. Like, Comeback Kid, Andrew, there's a friend of mine, and they go to South America a lot. And then they brought Chris Snellgrove in The Last Mile to support them there, I want to say earlier this year. And same thing. It's just like the intensity is just like dialed just way up. It's just dimed.
Do you like to play in the States?
I have, and I do. Yeah. I mean, I've never really tackled it as much as I have Europe and Canada. Like Europe and Canada has always just kind of been my go-to. I don't know why. I toured the States a lot when I was younger, when I was starting touring, but I never got a visa to do it. We did it under the table. And then, I don't know. I just never really committed, but I mean, I've been talking about it for a while. Excuse me. I'm at the point where like, I think that it's a bit daunting to like maybe try and feel like I'm kind of like, trying to get the ball rolling in another territory.
Yeah.
Like that's always a bit intimidating. And so there's that. I mean, that's like probably the biggest thing that's preventing me from doing it is that I just don't really know, like, if I want to go like break into a market again. Yeah. Like I'm at this point in my life where like I know what it is that I love about playing music. I know what it is that I love about touring, and I'm trying to just like only do those things. And I really love going to Europe. I really love going to Japan. I really love going to some pretty specific places in Canada, but other than that, like.
Where at in Canada? Where do you like to go?
Just like touring the Rocky Mountains is always great or whatever, like something like that. Like, it's just like, I'm not trying to say that, like one place is better than the other.
Yeah.
I'm just like, my point is that the way I've always approached playing music is that if there's a dot on a map with a word beside it, I will play a show there. And I've never ever discriminated, between certain markets versus another because of its size or fucking whatever. Like, I don't buy any of that shit. I like every single show you're ever going to play is equally as important as the next one. Mm-hmm. But at this point in my life, what I'm saying is that I kind of like coupling my leisure time and my working time a little better. So like, I just really enjoy going to the mountains, regardless if I'm playing or not.
Yeah. And
it's just nice to be able to go there and also do something else that I happen to really enjoy. And that's kind of my MO nowadays. Like I've done my time. I have been grinding it out for like the better part of 2 decades. And I just want to do something else for a while. I'm kind of at this point where like, like talking about earlier in the show, being in Windsor and being able to like enjoy Windsor in the autumn and in the fall and how beautiful it is to watch the leaves change. Like for 15 years of my life, I was always on tour. I never got the chance to see the leaves change. I was always looking at the leaves changing through the window of a van.
Yeah.
That's just not what I want to do anymore. I want to like enjoy my fucking time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. And it's really, I love going to Europe. I love going to Japan. It's just like being able to take a minute to like assess how grateful I am to be able to go to these really special parts of the world and work is something I also want to be able to do,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm a big, like, go back to the same places that I love too.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm like, shooting or whatever.
And it's again, like the world's changed so much. Being a musician's changed so much. I kind of want to change with it because even grinding it out, is the level of grinding is it's just turned up nowadays. Like you have to work 3 times as hard as you used to just to make the same amount of money. So I think it's just like, it's different. I'm just different.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's probably a good place to end it, unless there's anything else you want to discuss.
That's great talk, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming by.
Great questions. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, for sure. What's your most, you put out so much music. What's your most recent release called?
The most recent record is that Dizzying Lust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's on Spotify and everything?
It is, yeah. It's on Spotify. It's on all the other stuff. It's on this great new streaming app called Hio, which I'm also working for, so I should probably plug Hio.
What's that about? You can talk about it.
It's an app that's just remodeling and revolutionizing how artists get paid for streams. So okay. With the Hio model, 100% of a subscriber's monthly fee goes directly to the artists that they listen to, which is totally not how Spotify does it. And so that could really change a lot of things for the better for musicians.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks everyone. That was great. Thanks.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, that was good.
This is fucking really slick. Super pro.
Thanks. I try.